Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Rita Giganti. Today is Friday, June the 26th, 2020. It is 4 p.m. New York time, and wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And a little sadness today. Linda can't join us today. She's sad she can't join us today because, she was looking forward to this one. She heard about it too. But she'll be back again next week, and hopefully she'll be here at a time when our special guest, who is here, can also be here, so she can interact directly with him as well. But David Strickle joined us on Tuesday with the help of Daniel Mangana, wonderful Daniel, to present us with a new way of talking to non-physical. At least it's new for us here on the show. Anyone who knows anything about Abraham Hicks and other kinds of channelers knows it's not really new, but it's new for us. We haven't done a whole lot of stuff with channeling. And Rita, I got to tell you, it was a blast on Tuesday.
Yeah.
One of the comments that Dan made, because Daniel, of course, was on the show at the same time, after we went through the session, we spent like a half an hour getting to know David, and then another half an hour doing an actual session with him channeling the stream. And then we had a little follow-up after that. And Daniel noted that when David made his connection to the stream, there was this visceral lifting of energy. And we were already pretty high vibe at that point. But you could feel, whoa, the whole vibe just went up like 5 notches or something. It was
That's
really
wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful. David, I wanted to ask you about that. Do you get that same kind of surge whenever you make your connection like that?
Oh, yeah. And I don't know why my internet connection's not allowing video, so I'm assuming you can hear me okay.
Yep, we hear you just fine. Just for whatever reason, the surge just doesn't want to be seen. I'm sorry. So the surge, did I say the surge? I meant the stream.
Okay. Yeah, it's odd, but I'm going to go ahead and just do my thing and not worry about whether I'm on camera or not. So
we'll do that.
The feeling that I get, I sort of call in a feeling of connection. I clear my mind, I breathe. I stand in total appreciation of all that is, and then I have this feeling that comes over me that is incredibly powerful and incredibly positive. And when I have that feeling, I relax into it, and then I just sort of let them come in and take over, if you will. And it's not like I'm being possessed. I'm still present, but I sort of step back. I always say that I'm shifting gears, and I shift into a gear that allows them to sort of take over.
Right. Esther Hicks has said very much the same thing, that she doesn't feel like she's being possessed at all. In fact, for her, that was an issue, if I remember correctly, because before she learned how to do all this kind of stuff, she was pretty religious and was a little bit concerned that she was doing the devil's work or something like that.
Sure. Then, those of us that grew up in Christianity were taught things like that.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Sure. But then, they recommended to her that they meditate, and the meditation was such a success for her. And then she was able to slip into one step at a time, picking up information and transmitting it and so forth, and enjoying it, and finding from her perspective, no, she wasn't being possessed at all. She was just simply communicating and translating. She was like a translator. She was an intergalactic translator, sort of.
That's great.
It feels so positive. There's no way it can be anything, negative.
I also like the comment you made on Tuesday, David, and I can't remember if you made it in your voice or as you were communicating what the stream was saying, but the gist of it was they don't like to be worshipped. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, yeah. They've said that from the very beginning, that, we've created this Taya practice, and I've always joked that, it's not a religion, it's not a cult, but the stream has said certainly that there are no rules coming from them, there's no judgment coming from them. And I love what they say about not needing to be worshipped. They're the source of all creation. Why would they need to be worshipped by anyone if they are the source and we're all part of source? Why would there need to be worship involved?
Which is a great thing.
Yeah,
that's very good. So anyway, thank you.
I feel like gratitude puts you on that same plane with everybody when you're just in gratitude for everything. It just puts you in that same arena with everybody. There's no worshiping of one thing or giving your power over to anyone. It's just kind of melding with it,
Exactly.
We've got a question for you, David, before we get started and have you switch over to receiving information from the stream. Josie, who's one of our regular listeners, says hello, and She says, as a channel, I'm sure you know of the work of Jane Roberts and the Seth material, and she wants to know what your thoughts about those works are.
I know who Jane Roberts was, and I know that Esther and Jerry Hicks were very influenced by Jane Roberts early on.
Right.
I don't absorb a lot of teaching of other people. A lot of people think that, oh, you're the spiritual teacher, you must know X, Y, Z. I don't do that. In fact, it's not that there's anything wrong with any of that stuff. I shunned it myself in my early adult life. Throughout my 20s and 30s, I went to psychics really trying to figure out what was going on with me. And I would delve into things. I would read a little Sylvia Brown. I would read these different things and immediately would sort of turn away from them because I was seeking to discover my own personal truth from within, not from the thoughts of other people. Now here I am sharing thoughts, right? Which is kind of ironic, but the Abraham was really the only channel that I really followed in depth was Abraham in the beginning. And then when I decided to start channeling for the benefit of others, I was very guided to stop that. Not because there's anything at all wrong with the Abraham message, but for me in this message, I wanted it to be authentic and pure and original and coming from the stream and really have its own direction and its own flavor, if you will. And that's what we've created with this, is it is a little different variation. It's coming through a different filtration system, if you will, than any other channel that's ever been. So I don't really have a lot of thoughts about other channels other than Esther, just because I in the beginning, did consume a lot of that.
Sure. Yeah. Are you familiar with Seth, Rita? Have you read any of Seth's works?
Familiar with it, but don't think I've read anything, no.
Oh.
But Esther Hicks, of course, yes.
Sure.
I've heard and read and, all kinds of stuff, and they're fabulous.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I actually did read some of the Seth Speak material, and you walk away from it after reading about, 4 or 5 pages, appreciating the clarity of Abraham. Not that there's anything about Seth that's wrong or anything like that. It's just they try to go so deep into it that literally it boggles our minds as we try to understand what the heck are they saying.
Yeah. And it was part of it. I think what I've gathered from it, it was it was so unorthodox at that time that really caused her to have to strip away any expectation of it being quote unquote normalized and dive right in to source thought, source perspective.
Right.
And the vibration at the time was very disruptive.
Oh yeah.
Esther came along, and I acknowledge Esther in my book because to me, Esther came along and made channeling over a period of time very palatable and very consumable. And that served humanity's expansion in allowing a lot of people to open up to channeling that might have been turned off by the Jane Roberts, style.
Yeah, there was nothing wrong with what Jane was doing. It's just that we couldn't comprehend it.
It's just serving a different audience in a different way. Just like, people criticize the book The Secret because it's so rudimentary, but The Secret really advanced, humanity's idea that we create our own reality. So it did its job and continues to do so as far as sparking that idea. But then you're going to meet a lot of frustration if you don't take your practice a lot deeper. And I think we all know that now.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I had a similar experience with the book A Course in Miracles. For me, there are a lot of people. I think, Rita, you're one of the people who really likes that book a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of people like that book. For me, all I got out of it was headaches. Literally I'd read 5 paragraphs and I had to go lie down because my brain just was not willing to absorb what it was trying to say and the way it was trying to say it. It's a challenge. All of this stuff is a challenge because we're being presented with information that challenges so many long-held beliefs, many of which are misleading or perhaps even false beliefs that we picked up from religion or various spiritual practices and so forth. There's a kind of a shaking out that's been going on, but that's tough. When all of the stuff that you have, pulled from your tradition is being, pulled into the light of day and the dust and cobwebs brushed off it, and now you're really looking at it and it's not really communicating the way it communicated, say, 2 millennia ago, 2 millennia ago or something like that. It's just, this stuff evolves over time, and it's up to us to try to keep up with it as best we can.
That's it.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Rita.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. Yeah. It's just over time. And for some people, it's a little bit quicker, and others, it's a little bit slow going, but everybody gets it sooner or later.
Eventually.
And the stream often says we're not in a one size fits all world, because everyone is here on their own independent, unique journey.
Right.
And all of it serves a purpose. The atheists are here with their sets of beliefs, and it's serving their expansion, the path that they're choosing to take as human beings. Religious people, all these different types of religions, everyone is on their own path, right where they should be, and they're having their own unique experience. And if we discern our preference without judgment of others needing to agree with us, then we're on the best path for ourselves. And we're really lightening up about the thought of other people needing to agree with us.
Yeah.
I don't need everybody to discover the stream, and I don't need everyone on the planet to try to be a practitioner of Taya. It's out there for the people that are ready for it, that are vibrationally aligned with it. And that's the audience. And if somebody, every once in a while, we'll run an ad on Facebook, and, it's very different to post things to your audience and to run a general ad and a targeted audience, to promote a book or something like that. And you get all of these, people trolling you, like, what is this? This guy's nuts. This is crazy,
sure.
And all that stuff. And in the beginning, I had to adjust to that. It's kind of entertaining for me now to see that. Like, yeah, you really don't get it, and that's okay. It's not for you. I'm not trying to sell you a book. I'm trying to reach the people who are aligned with it. Sometimes it's better to do that without a paid ad anyway. So.
I hear you. And let's also remind everybody, I mean, a lot of people, probably most of our listeners, have heard the Tuesday episode, and so have some idea of what Taya is about. But give us a reminder. What is this Taya practice? What's the
Well, I had all of this information coming to me, very in-depth spiritual information, source-connected information, very much rooted in law of attraction, because law of attraction is the basis of all creation. So you to me, in my opinion, you can't get into spirituality and not include law of attraction as an important component of it, because it's a component of everything. So with my own frustrations with spiritual practice and my own frustrations with law of attraction teachings, I started putting together a set of practices to really heal and transform my own life. And after I started my podcast and wrote my book, I was very guided to leave my job and start teaching people this practice. And in the beginning, it was just sort of a course, and then it just transformed very quickly into a full-blown spiritual practice that allows you to release fear from your life, reset and raise your default vibration, and align with any change that you want. And it works. So, that's what I do now, is I teach Taya to people all over the world, and it activates the spiritual awakening within you wherever you are in that process. I've had spiritual teachers with 30 plus years of experience come through and have an even more intense awakening experience after practicing this for years, getting into these tools, because it's a daily set of things that we do that are not rooted in religion. There's no rules, there's no judgment, there's no worship, but there are specific things that we do in our lives to clean up our vibration and raise that default, which is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And well, that's more of what we want to get into. So tell you what, why don't we give you a moment to make the shift and make the connection, and let's have a little conversation with the stream. Sound good?
Right. Yes, it'll take just a
Very
couple
excited.
of moments.
It's almost like seeing an Abraham workshop, Rita, because you know how Esther does her thing, and she takes
Yeah,
about the same
I love
time.
her. Yep.
Yeah. And he's about
She's
the
so
same.
down to earth, and David sounds the same.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I even have questions ready for the stream, so the live streamers have been busy.
We are here.
Hello. Welcome. We're glad to have you back for a return engagement. We have more questions that we want to bring to you. We're going to include some from our live stream listeners. I'm also going to open things up to Rita too, because Rita probably has questions she wants to raise. And we also had a very interesting conversation on Tuesday that included an interesting discussion about magnetism. So we'll try to bring that one in too. But I'm going to start with one of the live streamers. And this is tying into what we were talking about before We brought you directly into the conversation stream, but Jeffrey, one of our listeners, asked a question. He says, are we as a group working on changing collective beliefs? And I think he means on a global basis, but it could also be within our community of listeners as well. But is that what's happening?
To zoom out to a collective consciousness perspective as far as humanity on planet Earth is concerned, that you are absolutely shifting beliefs. You are in the process of what you may call ascension. You are increasing your vibration at a more rapid rate than humanity has experienced in the history of humanity. And the thing that has activated that is your increasing technology, your current ability to communicate globally like you've never been able to communicate before. You have things such as Zoom and Skype, and you've got social media, and you are all coming together and sharing common thoughts and beliefs and connecting with one another in a physical way, the way that you are already connected in a non-physical way as a collective consciousness. But when you bring that consciousness down to 3D physical reality, where your ego, your human consciousness is no longer sort of shunning that higher consciousness perspective, and you start to find common ground in the 3D reality, then you start to question things. You perhaps come from different lands with different religious beliefs and different limiting thoughts that you've been taught that have stark similarities. And you understand that your questioning of these things is actually advancing your collective thinking. And in the advancement of your collective thinking, you're all coming to collectively question your institutions. And we often say that this is why you're noticing your governments and your religions and other institutions of control beginning to crumble beneath you, because you're questioning them like you never have before. And in that collective questioning of them, notice that your younger generations who are born up to speed with the time that they enter in are all shifting the way they operate their lives very differently than their parents, and certainly differently than their grandparents. But you are all doing this collectively. Notice your younger generations are not necessarily sticking themselves in a country. They are more nomadic as far as nationality goes. They are not sticking themselves within a religion or culture or a race as far as associating with one another between friendships and other associations, including romantic. That is shifting the vibration of your planet. And that shifting vibration is causing, if you will, a speeding up of time. You have sped up the time on planet Earth just a bit, and you are not aware of it. Your scientists would look at your clocks and say it's exactly the same as it's always been. But things are moving faster, and the things that drive your time are actually moving faster. And most of you are aware of this speeding up, though you can't quite label exactly what it is. And in this speeding up, in the collective consciousness raising in vibration, you are seeing some of what you may consider a negative backlash, your pandemic, the political uprisings, the racial tension that is peaking in certain places. All of these things are actually positive signs of ascension to a higher vibrational territory. And it just takes a little bit of shift in vibration to cause numerous things across your planet to occur. And you're all questioning, you're all reevaluating, you're rethinking how you operate, and you are all going through different levels of an awakening process, even those of you that are fighting it and wanting to go back to earlier times. That is part of their awakening process. They are just not aware of what it is.
Most people here on planet Earth do not share the kind of spiritual beliefs that we talk about here on the program. They have other beliefs. You outlined some of them. One of the things I think that happens when there is this kind of ascension, as you're calling it, an increase in vibrations planet-wide, is that those who don't have the kind of educational background that Rita has, Linda, myself, Daniel, and so forth, it's confusing when you don't have that background. When the stuff is going on, it just seems chaotic. It seems stuff's falling apart, like stuff's out of control. And it can create a pretty uncomfortable experience. I would even go on to say a very majorly uncomfortable experience for people. So I was wondering if you could comment on that side a little bit. For people they get confused in a kind of a situation like this, and they get afraid. They become fearful, angry. raging at times. And it's almost like they feel like they've been abandoned. They feel like that, pick any negative emotion. That's what they're feeling. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So talk about that for a little bit. How this is affecting people who don't really understand what's going on, and how is this actually contributing to their vibration raising?
The reaction to any condition in a human life on planet Earth, and this is true for all physical, but we will focus, of course, on this topic of humanity. Mm-hmm. There is no right or wrong way to experience a human existence. There is value in all of it. And we do not judge any of it. And as you all continue on your paths to what you may call higher enlightenment or awakening, which we are sure most of you understand is a lifelong journey, there's not a destination that you truly reach. But the more you practice and the more you do a practice that we have recently called zooming out to our perspective of non-judgment, zooming out to our perspective of understanding that every being is on their own unique path, having their own unique journey, and there's truly no wrong way to do it. You are perhaps looking at it from one who has done a lot of internal work to reach this perspective that you consider indeed a higher perspective of higher enlightenment, and we are not telling you that you're wrong, you are. But part of that higher perspective will eventually be, and we're guiding you all to zoom out to this perspective, one where you appreciate the experience of every other being on your planet for wherever they are, even if they are living in turmoil, even if they are terrified of what's going on and not understanding it. Their existence is their own sum of choices that has brought them to that point of belief. And if they are locked in a prison, if you will, of continual fear and misunderstanding, that is a place where they have put themselves and continue to keep themselves there, stifling themselves out of fear. And when their end of life comes and they shed their human form and return to their completed state, as each and every one of you will, they will look back upon their lifetime and not see it as one that was wasted, and not see it as one that they got wrong, and not see it as anything negative whatsoever. They will be in full appreciation for the difficult time that they endured, and that was the experience that the soul was ultimately looking for. In that vibration, you are all experiencing different types of physical existence, and the sole purpose of physical is to discern preferences and experience physical versions of the energetic realm that you appreciate from your perspective, understanding that in doing that, you are going to encounter unwanted things in your lives. Each and every one of you will. And in encountering these unwanted things, you have a choice to let it take you further down in vibration and create more things of that nature with even greater magnitude, or you have the choice to allow it to drive you up in vibration where the solutions lie. And in your solving of that issue, even in just your coming to terms with it and appreciating it, you are expanding in that process. So there is some type of expansion offered either way. Eventually, if you go down far enough and keep going down and down and down and down, you're going to hit bottom, and you're more likely to force yourself up in vibration, because polarity will draw you up and you will begin to solve some things. You can take yourself so far down in vibration that you end your life experience in an unsavory way from your human opinion. But then you're returning to your completed state of pure positive energy and looking back at that experience and expanding in your non-physical state from having had that unwanted experience from a human perspective.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with anyone that is pushing against these ideas, that are not ready for them. We guide you all to take a brief moment and pat yourselves on the back for being so advanced that you're interacting with energy such as this. It is an accomplishment indeed, but you continue on your journey, and then you gain full appreciation for all of those who are nowhere near this place and never will be as long as they are physical.
So there are actually a large percentage of the population that are going to remain what we might call low vibe for the duration of their lives, and that's the way they intend it, or is that just the way that they're going to play it out?
That is the way it's playing out for them as a human being. The intention is to come and experience unwanted things, finding your paths to the things that you discern as your preference. In fact, very often human beings look upon other beings in judgment believing that perhaps the ones that are born into illness or poverty or genocide or something of that nature are somehow cursed, while ones who are born into lives of privilege are blessed. Is that exactly the opposite from a consciousness perspective? You are seeking to come and have what you may deem a difficult life experience as a human being, when you are seeking higher levels of contrast and higher levels of expansion as a soul consciousness being. You are placing yourself in the path of the worst conditions very often. So those that you see that are placing themselves in that path, you are judging it from your experience that is not theirs. But that is a soul consciousness being that is coming to planet Earth to have a very challenging situation, perhaps not even making it out of the womb for one reason or another, and expanding in that experience.
It's a really great point that you're making there, and one that I try to remind myself of, that ultimately none of us here in the physical realm really know what's going on inside of the head or the heart of another person. I mean, we like to kind of imagine it. We'll talk to people and we'll get a sense of what they're willing to share with us and so forth. But at any given point in time, we have no idea what is going on inside their heads. There's stuff going on that it probably far exceeds any awareness that we have. And that's going to produce a completely different perspective from the one that we have. It's important to remember that, I think, but it's so easy for us to forget too.
You are correct. And those of you that have lived enough years and had enough what you may call jarring or even traumatic experiences can hearken back to how quickly you adjusted to that new way of being.
Mm.
You adjust very, very quickly. And when one has lived a completely different path, there is even less adjustment needed to adjust to something that you consider very unsavory, perhaps. But you are looking at it through your perspective and not theirs.
Right. Boy, that perspective really is everything. So, Well, we got more questions. Jeffrey's got some too. Rita, do you have anything you want to jump in with? I mean, I can just see your face.
I'm good right now. I'm just enjoying it.
Okay,
yeah, I'm good
right.
right now.
So let me go to Jeffrey. He's got a few questions, and I think Josie had some too. He says, how is identity related to our experience here, and how does that play into how channels show themselves?
Your identity, as far as the circumstances that you project yourselves into, is a match to your set of desires as a soul consciousness being. Your gender, your race, your nationality, your parents, your economic status, all of those things are a vibrational match to a set of circumstances that you're wanting to place yourselves in. And from your soul consciousness perspective, you are very much understanding that you are going to have this point of entry to planet Earth. And when you enter, you are going to acquire a human ego consciousness that is going to overshadow the eternal nature that you truly are. For the most part, we say overshadow, not completely wipe out. You are all aware of this eternal connection. That is why your religions are so powerful, because it has been labeled God, and you've been assigned very often a set of rules and consequences based on this connection that you know is real. And many beings are identifying that as something external from them, when in fact they are identifying their own higher self energy, which is part of that which we are. As far as the beingness of channels, you are all receiving our energy in your own unique way. And you are certainly not all on paths of receiving and sharing the way that David and others who quote unquote channel are receiving and sharing it. That is a unique set of circumstances and intentionality that allows that to be. The more you take the encumbrances off and the human judgment away and the fear away from what you're receiving in your own lives, the more clarity you're going to receive for yourselves. And the more clarity you receive for yourselves, the more you are either going to be guided or not to share it in some way. The set of circumstances that came to be for David to share our message was simply that we were coming to him very early on. There was an intentionality set there prior to his arrival on planet Earth to receive this and live a life in such a way that he had an opportunity to find his way back to sharing this message the way that he's sharing now. It took him 50 years to find that.
Mm.
And we want to stress that to all of you. What you are receiving now, the connection has always been, but there was a sum of life circumstances that led him through darkness to come out of the darkness so that it wasn't just a message that he was sharing, but actually a very deep and rich human experience to contrast that message from which to teach. That's why he was guided to create Taya. Mm-hmm. We guided him to co-create. He co-created it based on our teachings and created something very unique that works very well for those who are aligned with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And I want to come back to that topic too of how we are creating these experiences. But before I do that, I want to return to what Jeffrey was asking, because he had a follow-up question. He says, I understand and appreciate contrast and that it is always needed. But his question is, will we always have and need conflict?
Conflict is a judgment term of contrast, and we certainly understand the meaning behind it. You are never going to reach a place in a physical environment where a set of physical beings, a collective consciousness, is agreeing upon everything, because you're all here on unique journeys, projecting into unique human, in this case, egos, with infinite other experiences behind you. So the idea of projecting into an ego consciousness, or something like an ego consciousness, which all physical realms are similar in that nature. There's contrast in all physical realms, and there's polarity. The reason the contrast exists is because of polarity. Polarity is driving your vibration up and down a virtual vibrational spiral, regardless of what work you do or what belief systems you hold. So at your best, you are holding space, if you will, and allowing the ideas of others without judgment. But not one of you are capable of staying in that high vibrational state all the time. No matter how much work you do, polarity is going to drag you down from time to time. And when it drags you down, you have a sum of choices of how to respond when you're down there. But no matter what, you're going to have that bit of fog where you're not going to be as allowing as others' ideas. And there are going to be times that you're going to react negatively, or you're going to disagree, or you're going to set your preference towards something different. Go up your spiral, solve it, have a higher perspective of it, and move on. But with all of these varying vibrations and all of these various paths, you are guaranteed conflict. And the conflict is the exact thing that creates expansion. You're observing something that you do not appreciate and setting your sights toward improvement, toward change, toward evolution, toward a better thought even, creates expansion. And the universe is always expanding. Always expanding. It is energetic, and an energetic realm is either expanding or it is dying off. And you are not in an environment that is anywhere near dying off. You are in an environment that is ever expanding. And that is why you will always see conflict. This idea of world peace is a lovely idea to hold. We understand your desire for no conflict, but we promise you, as soon as you reach a place of no conflict, you're going to grow bored with it and you're going to create conflict.
So would it be safe to say that the conflict is there, but when people could begin to appreciate somebody else's experience and not judge it, maybe there doesn't have to be that kind of conflict. Maybe we can accept each other's viewpoints, not judge it, even though there is differences. And there's always like you said, there's always going to be differences, because not everybody, we'd probably be bored out of our minds if everything and everyone was the same. So, but I think we're at a point, and, I'm just throwing it out there, where we really have to learn to not judge what somebody else is experiencing or what they believe. We have to just honor what that is for them, and like we would want that for ourselves. Then I think we can coexist and co-create in a way that's, where there's not the conflict that I think that some people are talking about, because there's so much right now around the world that's happening. And a lot of it is for good. But I think it, especially for people like me who's an empath, it could take a toll on the body. So I'm just seeing it from a different perspective. That's all.
remember that you are creating your own bubble of reality, and that is the only thing you truly have control over. And in your own bubble of reality, where we guide any empath to, is to continue on your journey to this place of appreciation of all of it. And we promise you that that is a place that you are capable of reaching in your journey of full appreciation of the conflict. Because when you begin appreciating the conflict, suddenly it is not this negative thing for you anymore. And when you begin appreciating the experience of others, we will share with you that David is quite empathic, although he tends to turn that off as much as he can, because it makes him distracted from sharing what we have to offer and the absorbing of the energy and thoughts of others. But in a moment's time, he can certainly tap into these other thoughts. And a friend of his posted a story of a young man who was, in the opinion of the story, unjustly killed by the police. And he was reading this young man's final words, which were presented as something extremely sad. But we were very connected to David in this moment, because he had already done his vibrational work in the morning. He had meditated, he'd appreciated, he'd allowed us in to ponder some of these thoughts that he is sharing today. And in reading the story, he was in full appreciation for that young man's final words and how connected to our energy he was in his final moments, even though he was experiencing fear and experiencing death. He was able to appreciate the high vibration of the words that were coming through, sort of a reading between the lines of this experience of this young man crossing back over at age 23 to his completed state. And we understand that we are sharing this to an audience who, in the beginning, may feel a bit repelled by the idea of such a thing. But when you think deeper and deeper and deeper into it, that absolutely you are all eternal beings here having a very temporary experience, and there is no judgment of what the death experience is in your completed state. You have all died a million deaths, if you will, many different ways, infinite different ways. And when you begin to look at your state of being from that perspective, and looking at everybody's state of being from that perspective, suddenly life and death and the experience that happens in between those two things on planet Earth has a whole different meaning to you. And the struggle and the trauma and the conflict of others is something that you will reach a place where you can absorb in a higher vibrational way of appreciation and actually be of higher service to those that you were working with as an empath. And that is a magical transformation that few human beings cross, but it's available to each and every one of you in the zooming out. This is why we speak of zooming out over and over and over again. Zoom out to our perspective. We are part of you. It's available to all of you. Zoom out to that perspective of non-judgment. There's no right or wrong. There's no wrong way to exit this life. There's no wrong way to live this life. And all of the contrast exists for you all to want something that is an improvement, but be able to zoom out, taking on that ability to see from the highest perspective as one who can tap into the energy of others will allow you to process that energy in a very different way that you do not absorb as a negative thing.
Polarity is a concept that you've brought in a few times, both Tuesday and today, and it's a word that doesn't get used very much by many teachers in this realm that we participate and swim around a lot in. But it's an interesting term, and I wondered if you could go into more detail about what you are trying to convey when you use that word, and how you would like us to understand the word polarity.
We will. There are a set of teachings that David refers to often, and we will stay in that lane for a moment. David speaks very often of the book The Secret, and he was sharing before we came in that book was very limited in its scope and its message, but because it was so limited and so laser focused on one aspect of the energetic realm, it was very popular. And therefore it shifted consciousness on planet Earth to one of life is happening to you, to one of you are in control of your reality and creating it. And many, many people began believing that. And then there were other teachings that came after that, and a lot of experimentation with utilizing it with more intention, if you will, that was also met with a lot of frustration. We are here to share a further evolution of that message, that the cure to that frustration, if you will, is to fully understand polarity and fully understand the gift to your being that negative and unwanted things are. Polarity is a universal force that keeps everything in balance. In fact, it ensures the continual expansion of the universe, and it ensures the continual expansion of your being. Remember that you are a reflection of the universe, and your contrast that you experience that drives you ultimately to want something more, something changed, something improved. That improvement, even if that improvement is just a little bit of a better feeling thought, if you will, that is your expansion. And that is more important than many humans realize at this point. And so the negative contrast, you are not going to reach a state where you are simply sitting and manifesting everything that you want. Not one human being has ever done that. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. Even the wealthiest among you that are manifesting lots of material things are all manifesting lots of material things because there are other giant voids in their being. And they are labeling that as happiness, and notice that there's no ending to the things that they need to try to create happiness.
True.
Things.
Yeah. In fact, it's also true that I've found this to be true anyway, that anybody who develops the skill of manifesting and develops their ability to be very selective about what they're going to focus their attention on and so forth, I find that if we look at what I find to be the three most popular things that people try to manifest, those are money, relationships, and health. That seems to be the top three in almost any conversation that I hear about. Most people who are really good manifestors are good at 2 out of 3. I have yet to hear about or talk to anybody who's good at all 3 of them. And that kind of ties into what you're talking about. That
polarity ensures that you're not going to have every single thing that you want all the time. There's always going to be something to challenge. You are too intelligent to have everything that you want. There are certainly the ones at the top of the food chain in your animal kingdom from your human perspective are very likely manifesting everything they want. And they collectively have manifested their way to that place. But they're going to hit a wall because they're still in the animal kingdom, and yet here you are out of the food chain as human beings, the most intelligent beings on your planet. That obviously gives you a lot of power to do a lot of things that your animals are not able to do and create, but it also gives you a higher degree even of contrast. And the higher degree of contrast is that you overthink things. You question, you overthink, you beat yourselves up emotionally, you do all of these things that you don't have to do, but naturally you do them. So if you ever reach a place where you're manifesting all 3 of those things simultaneously and stick yourself there, that will signal the end of your experience on planet Earth, and you will manifest your departure back to your completed state.
It reminds me of a story that my Monday co-host, Louis D'Souza, told recently. And I don't know if he told it on the podcast. He may have told it to me off air, so to speak. But the story was that there was a young woman who grew up very strongly connected to Source, very able to communicate with Source, and was able to take what she had learned and use it to play in the stock market, to invest in the stock market. And she was so successful at it that I think by age 22 or 23, she was like a multi-millionaire many times over. And she was so successful with it. And the conclusion of the story is, once she had done all that, she died. And the hint was she had done everything that she was going to do. She had basically manifested everything she was ready to manifest, that she'd come here to manifest. There was no point in staying. And that sounds to be very similar to what you were talking about.
That is absolutely true. That in and of itself would be a universal law. We do not like to get into too many different universal laws, because the only true universal law is the law of attraction and the law of polarity. Those 2 things, everything else is a spinoff from that. And that is a spinoff from that. The law of polarity played a role in her demise because she did indeed, in her opinion, she didn't allow herself to want more. Her opinion of success was making all of this money. And she could have absolutely made all of this money and then desired something else, but she stopped there because she thought she had reached the pinnacle. Of course, most of you that lived beyond those amount of years understand that there's a lot more available to you in life that brings joy other than just millions of dollars.
Right.
Notice also that the things the one point that we love to get across in all of this, and we are delighted to share this, is that usually the one out of the three things that you're not able to manifest is the one thing that you think you need the most for happiness.
Yeah, that's a fairly common thing, I believe.
I didn't hear that last part. What was the last part?
The one thing that you're not able to manifest very often is the one thing that you think you need the most to be happy. You need money, or you need love, or you need better health to finally reach a place of happiness. And you may have the other two going on, and you really believe that you need this third. And you have to remember that the universe only answers yes. The universe does not judge.
Mm-hmm.
When you're at a place of needing it and wanting it so bad that your vibration of need is overriding your vibration of is, we speak of isness very much. The isness is the vibration that you're reaching for, the feeling of already having it and allowing the universe to populate it for you. The feeling of need is always going to be met with a yes from the universe that you indeed need it.
It's an ironic thing, too, that we think in terms of happiness coming from manifestations, from money, from health, from relationships. But this is one of the great things that The Secret was trying to teach. It's the other way around. The happiness comes first. And that's a hard concept for a human. I mean, we're so used to the idea that happiness comes from our experiences, not that our happiness creates our experiences.
That's why I was forget when the episode two episodes before we were talking about being in gratitude, and how that changes your state of being when you're in the gratitude, when you're thanking the universe and spirit or whoever you connect to, and that brings such a feeling of joy and happiness in your energy. And then I find that when I do that, like, things just snap into place. You don't really have to try that hard when you're in that place, In
your contrasting physical environment, the polarized environment of planet Earth, you absolutely are taught contrary to universal law. And this is a point of control of humanity. Your system of commerce. You are being told that happiness lies in things that you can buy from other people.
That's true. That's one of the many messages.
Absorb these teachings. You've absorbed these teachings for a very, very long time. Or you're taught that happiness lies in attending a certain church and tithing and supporting that religion. Yep. It all draws back to your system of commerce. And we are not guiding you away from your system of commerce. It is the system that is present on your planet in your current lifetime. You're not likely to change it. And the best that you can do is embrace it within your bubble of reality and understand that your system of commerce is absolutely not your source of happiness. Your system of commerce is your source of enjoying earthly things, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Your source of happiness is love of self, connection to our energy, and we hold nothing but love for you. So therefore, if you are loving yourselves, you are directly connected to that which we are.
And I actually believe that system of commerce is in an accelerated evolutionary state at the moment. I think that I've expressed the opinion before here on this podcast that 10 years from now, it's going to look quite different to us from the way it looks to us right now. The money situation, money is going to look different. We're going to be thinking about money differently. Jobs, we're going to be thinking about jobs differently. We're going to feel differently about them. And I can't be more specific than that at this point. I have certain ideas that I'm playing with, but I just have this very strong sense it's going to be a very different experience just 10 years from now.
We are not in the business of predicting your future because there are infinite possibilities for your future. And that is actually your mission here on planet Earth is to collectively create that, and certainly to create your own bubble of reality, which you all have the power to do. That is why we're not going to assign a future for you, because that is how creation occurs. But we will tell you that whenever you have a small majority of beings controlling the majority of the wealth, they're going to reach a tipping point to where that wealth then becomes useless.
Yes. Because
it's being hoarded and because it's being held in fear, that is going to be useless. And David has set himself on a journey of understanding that he has a vibrational set point in his life that he has achieved, that he has maintained with massive income and with zero income, with negative income. And that was a lesson that he had to teach himself.
Mm.
That he is now ready and willing to teach anyone else who wants to hear about it. That well-being and abundance and having experiences and a place to live and food to eat and not just basics, but a rather luxurious compared to most of your planet way of being, whether the currency is flowing or not. And for many, many years, based on what we were offering him, his focus was solely on manifesting money and material things. And he did it very, very, very well. From his poverty-stricken childhood, if you will, his point of attraction that he set for himself was one of high income through most of his adult life until he listened to our guidance and jumped out of the airplane, if you will, with no plan. Yes. And decided to start living without employment and sharing our message on a full-time basis. And now he lives exactly where he wants to live in a beautiful place and has all of the things that he wants, whether the income is flowing through his business or not. He has proven that to himself. And you can all prove that to yourselves. This getting so wound up in your flow of dollars and whether you're going to be able to pay for it or not, afford it or not, you're worried about your credit score, and you're worried about all of these 3D things. When you remove yourself from that equation completely and let the universe take care of you, the universe will always take care of you. Always. And the more of you that come to realize that, you will break your current financial system. And those that are hoarding all of your currency, which is only energetic at this point anyway, there's no real currency. It is all made up. It is vibrational. It is all in your minds.
Right.
Their hoarding of wealth will be absolutely worthless.
Yeah, I think that's true. What you're talking about reminds me of an old, I don't know, it's not really a joke. It's more of like a sort of a mini scene rather than a story. But it's the impression of what entrepreneurship in this particular scenario is, where you jump off a cliff holding a box of airplane parts, and then you try to put an airplane together on the way down. And that very much describes what it often feels like when you're trying to launch a new business. But it's kind of similar to what you're talking about, just letting go of all of our preconceptions. It's scary to do that. It's scary. These preconceptions are ground into us from day one, from the moment we get here into this life. And letting go of that is a challenge. But
David was guided by us to start his own business at age 19 as a high school dropout. And without fear and with not much to lose, he did it and broke all the rules. And reached an end of that experience, and then dipped into more conventional, if you will, fear-based thinking, and got into a scenario where he was employed by others for a very long period of time. Mm-hmm. And he was never truly satisfied during that period of time. And he was interviewing for a job with a corporate psychologist. It was a very high-level job, and the corporate psychologist told him that he needed to be an entrepreneur. He had no business working for anyone else. And in less than 2 years' time from hearing that, he quit his job. And he has been very happy with it ever since. Mm-hmm. With no plan, with getting into reading. Every time he would begin reading these blogs or speaking to a consultant that claims to know what all you need to do to prepare yourself to be an entrepreneur, the more his vibration dropped. When he turned back to our connection and we told him that you could be successful no matter what and not to listen to anyone else, he listened. And when he finally did, after ignoring it for many years and torturing himself, he found himself in the happiest time he has ever been in. And now you're witnessing one who is able to channel at will very easily, because all of those other encumbrances are gone.
That's so true. The fact is that we have so many teachers, self-proclaimed teachers, trying to teach us about wealth. I mean, right now we're talking about wealth. It could be health or relationships or anything else, but trying to teach us, and we have the answer on all this. And I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but you're absolutely right. It always brings the vibration down to read their stuff. That's kind of like the opposite of what they're trying to proclaim. And you don't really think about that when you're reading it, but you're right. It does bring the vibration down to read a lot of this stuff. It's amazing.
The very best way to solve any problem is to raise your vibration, get out of your own way, and allow the universe to solve it for you.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And that is the art right there, isn't it? That's the challenge. Can we allow ourselves? Can we convince ourselves? Can we talk ourselves into letting go of all those preconceptions and just getting into that better feeling state? It seems so easy to say it. It seems so easy. Why is it so difficult for us?
And that is why we have labeled the practice that we have delivered Trust Your Abundance. It comes down to trust.
Mm.
Trusting the universe, trusting your abundance, whatever that is. The abundance is not necessarily money and material things. It can be.
Sure.
But it is anything that you desire is your abundance. And if you trust the universe and you are able to trust in the process of detuning fear.
One of the reasons why I asked David if he'd be willing to come back, I actually framed it as, I want you to come back every week. In fact, I want you to come back as often as you can come back. And one of the reasons is I want to continue these kinds of conversations that we're having right now because I feel like I have so much I can learn from you. One of the things that I've kind of wished for quite some time, and you're appearing on the program is sort of a manifestation for me that I've been trying to attract for a long time. I've wanted to have the ability to do what David does, but not that I want to be a channel. I just want to be better at communicating with my inner being because I can get some stuff. I can get some feelings. I mean, certainly emotional feeling is one of the best ways to make that connection and to realize what it is that I'm feeling deep within and how it is I'm responding to X, whatever X is. But I also like the idea of this kind of verbal communication. That's the way humans communicate. We communicate verbally. And I love the idea of being able to develop that within myself, to be able to have that happen more frequently within myself. I think it's one of the reasons I do a podcast. I mean, since I haven't totally developed that as much as I want within myself, at least I can talk to my fellow humans who are doing the same kind of thing. But how can I improve that? How can I improve my ability to do that?
Releasing any fear and judgment around it that creeps up and making your focus being in a state of joy, relaxed joy, not looking for it, not forcing it. David tried to force his channeling for a very long time. And when he finally relaxed into it and allowed it to just be and allowed himself to just raise his vibration and write, he realized he was indeed channeling because there was information coming to him that was well beyond his intellect. The same thing goes for his ability to speak it. It was not always this way. It was far more forced and uncomfortable in the beginning, but it was allowed. And now the more comfortable, the more he enjoys the process, the more we flow with ease.
You make it sound so simple.
The universe operates very simply, and your abilities to do things, once you discover them, you will look back and realize how simple indeed it was. But your path of frustrations along the way, all of those things, all of these lower vibrational events, these clarifying events, if you will, when you go down in vibration and you manifest an obstacle, that obstacle is actually a clarifying event for you. It can be. Because when you meet your obstacle in joy because you have manifested it and raise your vibration to solve it, it becomes a clarifying event for you. And these clarifying events total a series of things that you place in your paths to manifest a better, more perfect version of. So no matter how long it takes you to get to a place, do not judge that. Understand that everything is happening in perfection. We have stated it took David over 50 years to be able to do what he's doing now.
Right. Yeah.
But all of those experiences and all of those frustrations in that entire decade that he once looked at as a wasted decade of his life, his 30s, served him to go deeper and served him with so many lessons that he can now teach from as a teacher of our words. Yeah. Your process will be what it will be. And the more you stand in joy and appreciation of it, the easier things will come.
Isn't it ironic that all of this comes down to learning to trust ourselves? Because that's really what you're describing.
Trusting yourselves, trusting the universe, trusting the process. Trust is very important because you've been taught not to.
Yeah. We're relearning what we already knew.
You've been taught to operate in fear. And this was not always. This was in the society building era of humanity that you were coming out of now.
Mm-hmm.
The religions and the governments and the leaders that have placed you on these paths. And there's contrast in all topics. So there are positives to that. You have gotten to this place where you have communication and modes of travel and structures and plumbing and food supplies and all of these positive things that have advanced humanity to where it is today that are positive, but it took, from the human perspective of placing you on these templated paths, if you will, the creation of what you may call the middle class that got you here. But now that you're here, you're no longer needing it. Mm-hmm. Previous generations needed it for the path that humanity was on, and now you're seeing that you no longer need it and you're breaking free from it. Yeah. And therefore, there is nothing wrong with the way that your parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents operated their lives. Even if it was one that you judge as very fear-based, that was perfection for the time. But now here you are all coming out of this. And those of you that are absorbing these thoughts and accepting the responsibility for everything that has occurred in your lives and everything that will occur in your lives, you are on the leading edge indeed. But part of being on the leading edge is reaching a place of non-judgment for those who are.
Yeah, that's really big. It's very big. The only thing that I'm afraid I do have to judge on is the fact that we're out of time for the show today. So I'm going to say thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you. Yes, that was wonderful.
We're going to make sure that you come back again. So I'm issuing the invitation to you, the stream, and we'll also issue the invitation to David to keep coming back because, boy, I mean, we've just barely begun to touch on the questions that can be asked here.
Exactly.
This has been a glorious experience for all involved, and we will drag David's physical body.
Glad to hear that. Very glad to hear that. So we'll give you a moment to let David withdraw from the connection there, and I'll take that moment to remind people this is why we ask you to subscribe. This is why we want you to be subscribers of the podcast. If you're not yet subscribed, please become a subscriber. It's very simple to do. If you aren't sure how to do it, go to loatoday.net. You'll find instructions right there at the top of the page. And yes, for those of you who are wondering, we are getting really close to issuing the app that will make it so much easier for everyone to listen to the podcast. I found new ways to block apps from appearing, but I am learning to remove those blocks. And so I am anticipating any day now I'm going to be able to announce that, yes, you can go download it. It's just that we're not quite there yet. But that is coming soon, and that will be another reason to be a subscriber. You'll get the news. You'll get the information that, yes, the app is now available for download. Also, make sure that you take a moment to share and tell a friend to tell a friend, because that's how more and more people find out about this. That's how we reach the people who need to hear the message, who need to hear the information that the stream, that Rita, that Linda, that Dan, that Louie, that all the others who are involved here are trying to share. They need to find out that it's here. So please share through social media, through friendships and so forth, that this information is available and more people can be accessible to it. And David, I'm not sure if you're back connected yet, but Rita, I'll ask you first. What's your impression? I know you liked what you heard, but
oh yeah, it's such a, even for us who are, can connect to this and accept it easily because we're in this field, like we do this work already.
Right.
It's still so uplifting when you have somebody come in and talk about, what we already know, but to hear it again, it's refreshing. It just brings the sense of peace and joy. And I always learn something from someone or, who's ever channeling, even if it's something I don't, connect to, I'm still learning something from it. So, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. I have a friend that, and a mentor of mine who used to do this, but her voice would change.
Mine, I'm back, by the way.
Hi, David.
I came back in, but it took me a little minute to get out of the confusion. I'm still buzzy from it. My voice was different. If you go back to my podcast in the very beginning, my voice was different, and that was really me not being fully comfortable.
Okay.
And then it eased up, and now it's very similar. I mean, the personality is very different when they're coming through. But and they're far more eloquent than I am, but, my voice leveled off to sound just a lot like me after just a few months. And I know that Esther used to sound very different.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Abraham. And
Yes.
I think because she came before and made it more comfortable, that is inspired now all of us who channel after her to, it's forever changed because of that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Wow.
It's beautiful. Thank you, David.
Yes, very much. Thank you so much for coming back. And I was glad that you were able to come back so quickly. I mean, I put it out. You'll remember I put it as a message to you through Facebook. We'll take you as often as you can come back.
No, anytime there's great questions for the stream and the vibe is super high, I'm happy if I can to jump on and be part of it and give them a workout. I love it when people give them a workout, because that's really new thought. Because a lot of times people come on the Facebook show that we do, or the YouTube show, or the podcast, or the radio show, and they have the same questions over and over again.
Right,
so
right.
New, interesting, deep questions. I like the easy questions are great because it's helping someone new, but the deep ones, that's what I really get into. So this is a lot of fun.
Well, we can promise you a lot of those. I mean, if that will help you come back more often, we can promise a lot of those.
Cool. Very cool.
Those
Absolutely.
are easy for me. If I have one skill, that's it. I can come up with questions that go deeper than anything I've ever explored before. So not a problem.
Great.
So thank you again, David. We appreciate you coming onto the show, and we're going to work out the time for you to come back. It's really going to come down to what your schedule is. So let's communicate through Facebook and figure out, what the upcoming schedule is going to be.
Certainly. Would love to.
Sounds good. And Rita, this is great. I mean, we missed Linda, but
yes, I miss Linda, but yeah, listen, I'm sure David will be back and she'll be able to connect.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. So thank you guys very much. Thank you especially to live streamers for the questions you had to ask. And especially thank you to our podcast listeners as well. Without you, we wouldn't have a podcast. You make it so worthwhile for us. So thank you very much. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.